Okay, the next civilization that we're going to study is the Indus Valley civilization. This screencast is going to be a little bit different than the others. It's not going to have any images. It's just going to be text for your notes. The images we're going to save for later when we do an activity in classroom. Okay, let's get started with urbanized society as one of the first of the 8 characteristics. First of all, we know that the Indus Valley civilization had planned cities. They laid them out in a grid pattern. The houses were of varying sizes in the city, and some of the examples of cities that you'll need to know are going to be Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Those are going to be the 2 cities that we study in more detail in class. Let's also take a look at well-organized central government. We know that they were a theocracy, and that means that their society was ruled by religious priests. They managed long-distance trade with Mesopotamia, so there was extensive trade over long distances. And they organized agriculture outside the city. And they also limited conflict, so there were very few weapons found. Archaeologists never found much signs of warfare amongst these people. But in many ways, they were very similar to what we saw in Mesopotamia and Egypt, and that the agriculture surrounding the cities was organized by the central government. Now, they also had complex religions. After all, they were a theocracy. So they prayed for good harvests and safety from floods, which was very common amongst the cities of the Indus Valley because the river oftentimes changed its course. But there are also some early links with Hinduism. So a lot of folks will trace back the origins of Hinduism all the way back to the Indus Valley civilization. So they believed in things like the mother goddess, fertility, and the worship of the bull. All of these sort of aspects of Hinduism can be traced back to these early religious beliefs in the Indus Valley. They also had public works. So elaborate plumbing and sewage systems were built throughout the cities. They had public baths for people to use for sanitation and bathing. They had granaries for storing the produce that came from the agricultural fields, and they could be used for redistribution by the well-organized central government. They also had levees or dikes or barriers for flood protection to prevent the city from being damaged by the flooding river. And they also had brick defensive walls in most of the cities. So these were all examples of public works. These are all things that serve the needs of the people living in the city itself. Okay, they also had job specialization as well. They unified their culture, and that means it sort of suggests that there was less division. They also had job specialization as well. Their unified culture suggests less division, so less social division in terms of upper, middle, and lower classes. Examples were that there were city planners, so people who had to actually plan and organize those cities that they built in a grid-like pattern. The priests, obviously, who conducted their religious practices, but also ruled as theocratic rulers of their cities. And also the architects who built many of the buildings that were found within the cities themselves. There was also a merchant class that engaged in trading, long-distance trading and local trading, and of course farmers who grew all the food in the surrounding countryside. Okay, social class. There was a ruling elite. That's often seen in some of the larger structures seem to be reserved for people like maybe the kings of their cities or their rulers. And there was also a priestly class as well. Similar housing, though, suggests that social division was not that great. So there were some bigger homes for some of the more important people at the top of their society, but for the majority of people, they lived in similar style housing. Again, suggesting that there wasn't a lot of social class differentiation, at least not in terms of architecture. Okay, art and architecture. They used oven-baked bricks for buildings, and they built citadels, which were sort of fortified areas. Some people believe this is where the kings may have actually lived. They also had assembly halls in these areas as well. There were lots of stone carvings, though, when we talk about their sort of artistic creativity. Lots of stone carvings, lots of gold and silver jewelry, and also they wore colored cotton garments. So that's all part of the aspects of the artistic design that they created, as well as the architectural creations of their buildings in their city. And then you had writing. They used stamps and seals, sort of like we might use a stamp today to sort of stamp our name on something. There are 400 symbols that are known. They tend to be pictographic, and they may in fact be phonetic, so there's some debate about this. The problem is that Indus Valley writing script has not been deciphered. Nobody has yet figured it out. And that's why some people argue that it may just be pictographic, and other people say it may be more phonetic. So it's kind of hard to tell. Nobody can really read it, and it's really difficult to get a good understanding of their ancient history because we can't really read much of what was written.